Hi, so I'm back with some more reviews for you today, and instead of starting with a joke, I'm going to start with a fact that in truth is a fact, but you won't know that it isn't a joke because of how ridiculous it is. In 2010, the band Interpol went on a nice little hiatus to do some side projects. Well, this year they put out this nice little album here, El Pintor, which is the painter, translated. But if you go back to check out what lead singer Paul Banks was doing the year previous to that, we'll get to my nice little quip. Well, Paul Banks is a usual baritone singer, but in this little hiatus that they went on, his solo project was a rap album entitled Everybody on My Dick Like They Supposed to Be. And that, my friends, is my opening joke. Thank you, Paul Banks, for your real attempt at a joke in the form of an actual rap album that really happened. Paul Banks, Everybody on My Dick Like They Supposed to Be. Right from the man who sings on this album. So let's go into some history on Interpol, the band, not Paul. We already know about his dick. We're moving on. Interpol is an American band from New York City. Obviously, they're the New York, like Conan or Stone band. The Strokes, Interpol, it falls into the same category. They're from New York. In 1997 they were formed, which is like something I never would have thought. I picture them as, 2000s. 90s? No, they just don't. It consists of the lead singer, vocalist, Paul Banks, we've talked about too much. Daniel Kistler, guitar and vocals, originally, of course. Guitar and bass player and keyboard player. Carlo Dingler, which we'll get into even more later here in a bit. Greg Drungy on drums and percussion, who actually left in 2000 and was replaced by Sam Fogradio, and he's still there. So, that's some basic information on Interpol, but they were formed by Kessler and Drudgy. Kessler had been looking to put a band together for a while, and he met Drudgy. They had a very hard time finding musicians to play with, or musicians at all, really. They met in a class in New York University and asked him if he played an instrument. Later they ran into Banks, whom they first met in France, in New York's East Village, and the pair discussed collaborating. Banks admitted that the two butted heads early on in the band's history, but told Spin now that they are really tight in a spiritual way. Tight. The band had trouble choosing a name at first, so the point was like, guys, we're getting decent crowds, but like we don't have a name, so no one knows who to go see again. Furthermore, they decided the French letters as names before adapting Interpol. After releasing Fucked ID No. 3 extended play album, Drudgy left to focus on Hot Cross, his label Level Plane Records. From there, we got Fogradio, and they worked on vintage clothes. He worked at a vintage clothing store at the time, but he replaced him as the now permanent drummer of Interpol. After the release of their several EPs from 98 to 2001, they signed on to Matador Records and became a member of the Independent Beggars Group. The self-release of the self-entitled EP containing PDA NYC was released in June, and 2002 brought us Turn on the Bright Lights, one of the most loved albums of the early 2000s, and it still to this day is worshipped. It's particularly thought of things like influences from Joy Division, Echo and the Bunnymen, the Smiths. From there we go, 2004, Antics. From there it's pretty standard, actually. Our Love to Admire comes out in 2007, and it's a departure from the normal sound of Interpol. From there, 2010 comes, and they put out Interpol, the fourth album. It was recorded in the Electric Lady Studios, and shortly after that, Carlos Dingler on bass leaves, and the band has a lot of trouble finding themselves again, and they go on hiatus. Now they're back. El Pintor. First they reunited to play a little bit of a tour with U2, but then after that, they're like, hiatus. Gotta reinvent ourselves, and they did. Paul Banks plays bass on this new album, El Pintor, and this is just everything we wanted from them. It is. It's just the epitome of everything that they needed to do. You thought the fourth album was the one where they're going to have the mid-career success point and come back, but it's not. It's this one. This is the high mid-career point right here. Seriously, Interpol, they're back. Check it out. In truth, I've got my letter right up here, but I don't need it. I don't. I know this band like the back of my hand. Ever since 2002's Turn on the Bright Lights and 2004 Antics, everybody knows Interpol. They've become this band that you love, but you can't seem to get this lowering expectations out of your head. Every time they release an album, you get more and more disappointed, and you become more and more used to the fact that they're not going to be that album-releasing band like they were in the 2004 and 2002. And, I don't know, like I said, this album is important because it brings them back to the heights of that career. And, spoilers, this album's really good. Sorry. I didn't mean to ruin it for you, but it's awesome. After loss of Carlos Dingler, it actually took them a while to come up with anything, because they had trouble finding themselves. And that rap album may have helped. I don't know. We'll have to ask Paul. But here we got those glossy bass lines and the style that they used to, and the new album is just everything they wanted it to be. So let's go through the tracks. First track on here, All the Rage Back Home. It opens slowly and kind of self-thinking way. It wants to think back on the past of Interpol, and it kind of worried me a little bit at first because I thought we were going back into that crazy, little bit too convoluted, dark area from Interpol and Our Love to Admire. But then they fire it and start it up a quick and very melodic intro song for them. It's driven by sleek guitar lines and Paul's voice as usual. On past albums, his lyrics have become vague and simple and kind of just repeats the same lines over and over again. But here, he's very interesting and he's an absolute storyteller like you wanted him to be, like he has been in the past. I don't know, it's like something that might have come out of the New York clubs in the 2000s, and that's the biggest compliment you could give this, because that's what they were, and that's what they have become again. If that tells you anything, it's a very good album, it's a very good highlight on the album. There, the second song on the album is called My Desire, and it continues that quick pace that the opener has and adds some great, seductive, dark charm that we loved on previous album, because Paul brings this hugely high falsetto notes out of nowhere, and it just seduces people into this dark, seedy alley, but you don't even mind that you're in a dark, seedy alley because Paul Banks is there, and you're like, hey Paul, don't rape me, it's okay, we love you. And it's just exactly what Interpol has been. They're that seedy, dark thing that you all bob your heads to in the middle of a dark club, and you're like, I'm emotional, look at me. But you don't care that you're being emo because they're great. It's just so much fun to hear them at this incredible, catchy point in their lives again. It's another amazing song. It's just great. Seriously, great. From there, Anywhere is another one. The first three, just firing on all cylinders. This song is actually driven this time by the drums instead of the guitar. The vocals still shine like they always do, but the drummer shines the most here, with the drums being the best on the entire album right here on this track. Same Town, New Story slows things down a bit from the first three, and then it leads in some more with guitar lines before adding in multiple layers into the mix. It's slower, like I said, than the previous one, but it makes up for it because it has this smoldering vocals from Paul. And it's great. It's great because the way he does this is he's a lounge singer, but he's also a rock singer, and he knows that contradiction makes him interesting. It's great in the same fact that the guitar lines are just an amazing glossy sound like you would, and it's something you could easily see on Antics. Great compliment. My Blue Supreme is where we return here to the falsetto that Paul adds to this album, just floating as he croons on the album's slowest song so far. But the magic of this song, actually, isn't that. It's this huge chorus that you get to in the middle of it that we all just want to sing to. We sing it by ourselves in the dark of our rooms or in our cars in the pouring rain about being alone and being lonely and it being okay. And that's just, that's Interpol. That's who they always were, and it's always how they are. And I don't want them to change that side of them. Everything is wrong. It's led in by a dark and pounding bass line here in the back before layers and smooth vocals come in. The song, again, it shines in the chorus, again, where the guitar solo, bass jam, and drums sort of float and pound. They jam along the side and the back, but really they all give the attention to the vocals, and he has the spotlight for this great hook while all the other instruments are firing on all cylinders. It works. It really does. Number 7 is called Breaker 1. Simple guitar line starts the song, before bellowing bass and vocals drive us to this powerhouse chorus. Similar formula, but it really works. The song quiets down each time and builds back up to this booming chorus. This is a song that could have easily ended up on Turn on the Bright Lights. I mean, the title even. Breaker 1? Obstacle 1? Anyone? I mean, it makes sense that they're doing it this way because it really feels like that time period. And at the height of its volume, it's blasting before finally fading away and quieting to the end. 8 Shit Ways is actually the angriest song on this album. I think it might actually be something about the bassist leaving, because there's a lot of pentaprogression and the anger of the bass. You can feel the intensity of the bass here, and it sort of, to me, feels like they might be hinting at a little pentaprogression about that part from the bassist. It's a very blasting song from the guitar, the bass. It's the most punk rock I've ever heard Interpol, and it sounds great. I love heavier Interpol. Seriously, this is the kind of stuff that you want them to be, but they won't because they're too cool for that. This song blasts. It's my personal favorite on the album. It really is. With Tidal Wave, it starts with, instead of your smooth guitar, it's like a swirling guitar like you'd see on My Bloody Valentine. And it goes from there into just, I don't know, dare I say ballad, because it's not really a ballad, but it spends the most time in the quiet sections of the song. It builds like everything, you know. When you get to a song like this album is all about building to choruses and then calming back down, and then building to choruses and then calming back down, and building again because they want you to pay attention to the chorus. But this song spends more time in the chorus section previous to the chorus than in the chorus itself, so I don't know. It's a great song and it's a personal favorite on the album. I think this whole album's great, so it's hard to justify. It's captivating. Last song on the album. Twice as Hard. It closes the album and it creates this sense of impending doom like you're watching a horror movie before the tornado strikes. They do so well at that. They really do. They add lines, it builds to a huge, sonically destructive chorus before fading away into nothing. And that's it. They do that because that's what they always do. If you've been following Interpol from the start of this, you don't even need me to say this because you already know. It's true. This is the best Interpol album in 10 years at least. It is. It's true. They've done so much, but it's always fallen short of their past works. And this time, they're finally back at the height of their power, and thank God. I'm so happy about it. They just needed to take some time and restart, and Paul Banks needed to tell people to get on his dick, and then they were back to being themselves again. So, thanks for that. 4 out of 5 stars. Seriously, check it out. Amazing. All the Rage Back Home is a highlight. My Desire, Anywhere. I personally think that Ancient Ways is great, and so is Twice as Hard. So, you can't go wrong anywhere. Thanks.